Hello watchers! This is a new video series I want to start where I engage directly with you, the viewer, and hear your soul's take on different topics. And when I say soul, I mean your deepest and most honest opinion. The answer you would give if you believe there is a real moral right and a moral wrong. An eternal truth and eternal judgment. In each episode, I'll pose a few numbered questions, and I invite you to answer them in the comments after I ask the questions. There will be a comment pinned below of all the questions asked in this video, and I'll briefly share my own thoughts as well. My goal is to genuinely engage with people's opinions, reflect on them, and possibly make a follow-up video where I go over some of your answers and talk about what we've learned together. So, for episode 1, I have a topic that's given me a bit of moral confusion. And I want your soul's take on episode 1, your soul's take on the Epstein files. A very debated topic right now. So question 1 is, why do you think Epstein was involved in so many circles? From video game microtransactions, helping to create those, to helping create 4chan/poll, to deep ties to the royal family in Britain, and deep ties and to debauchery among U.S. presidents, and deep ties with the tech companies like the Palantir CEO in the U.S. It seemed his hand was in every single pot. Why? Why do you think that is? For me, I think it's because it all goes back kind of biblically to Israel, and that Epstein was, or at least it's believed he was a Mossad agent, and he's working for Netanyahu, right? He's collecting blackmail on all these people, and it goes biblically back because this is what these elites believe, is that there needs to be a revolt against Israel, There need to be, Israel needs to be propped up, to bring in the second coming of Jesus. So, and it's very strange, like his bank account being named Baal, one of the Canaanite gods in the Bible. It's all very strange, and it's like they're playing out a story that's being told. They understand they're in maybe a simulation, and they have to fulfill the role to complete that story. And Epstein's role in that story is helping to prop up the Zionist movement, the Christian Zionist movement against Israel, and force the second coming of Jesus, right? And just to hit each point like individually, like the microtransactions for children. Well, what is Satan's ultimate goal, right? It's to attack children. It's to hurt children, cause children to stumble. And his goal with that was to incentivize children to gamble. Talking with the Call of Duty CEO about starting these, the supply drops and stuff. It's all about incentivizing children to sin. As for with the 4chan slash poll, what's the goal of that? That was to create a radical right movement, you know? That's he kind of planted the seeds for modern day MAGA. It's very interesting to think about. And then his ties to the royal family and U.S. presidents Bill Clinton, George Washington, Prince Andrew, Trump. That was all the blackmail operations. And that's exactly what's been going to Netanyahu in his emails. Netanyahu's got a lot of dirt on all of them. Pulling strings. But why did he have his hand in every single pot, you know? And you wonder, it's like, how could someone have so much time, so much energy to do all of this? Well, what does the Bible say that the devil does? The devil runs here and there and through the earth all day, every day. That's what devils do. The devil possessed, they do a lot. And Epstein, he's in a class above even the elites. He's in the occultist class, the Baal worshippers, the Jews worshipping another god, the Canaanites, you know. He's in that class. He's he's one of them that's been exposed in light. But there's many more. I'm telling you, there's many more. An example is the pedo from Britain, Jimmy Savile. He was one too. He got the royal family in a bunch of dirt because he was doing sick things with children for them. And then there's others if you look deeper into that rabbit hole. But yeah, he's just one of many occultists. But the thing is, like the serpent, they work in the dark. They work in the shadows. They pull strings. They aren't the politician who's in front of you. Their goal is to corrupt those politicians, to corrupt that royal family, to sow sin and disorder and distortion among them. So, Epstein was one of those serpents, and he was exposed in the light. Now, I'm going to move to question 4, actually, because it kind of brings up a point I want to bring up. So question 4 is, why do you think the Department of Justice, DOJ, decided to release the bulk of information now? Why do you think the DOJ decided to receive the bulk of information now and keep whatever they are still hiding? Right? Why are they telling us this now? This has been going on since JFK. Every president since JFK has been involved in this debauchery, and the Epstein files is coming out. So, George Bush Sr., George Bush Jr., Bill Clinton, Obama, Trump, JFK, all of them in serious, lustful debauchery. But why now? Well, biblically speaking, this is a part of Satan's system, right? So, the serpent works in shadow, right? The false prophet works through lies, you know. The Antichrist works through doing the opposite. Anti-cross, the opposite of what Jesus did. Satan, the red dragon, however, kind of like the Antichrist, but a little different. Satan is knowledgeable rejection of God before knowledgeable rejection. Okay, that's pretty simple. It's knowing God is real, yet still rejecting him. And that's, to me, that's what it's about. So that's why they release this. They talk about child sacrifice and things like the Canaanites. However, it is a challenge to the people. It is saying to the people, now you have a taste, a little taste of what goes on in the most inner circles of the elite, the big club of like 400, 500 billionaires that are controlled by occultists. You now know what is going on, right? But you're not going to do anything about it. You're not going to reject them. You're going to accept them, right? You're going to accept Trump as your leader, okay? You're going to accept Satan as your leader, knowing rejection of God. That's what it's about, you know? That's why the people who take the mark of the beast system are irredeemable. It's because they know that that is Satan, yet they are accepting it. Okay? It's not that that the red dragon comes and says, "Oh, I'm lying to you, you know. I am actually God." No. Once the serpent mask is lifted, you know, holy smokes, that is Satan. That is 100% Satan. However, you're going to accept him. And if you don't, well, try turning these stones into bread, right? That's the challenge. Try turning these stones. Try engaging in monetary in our society. It's saying you're going to accept that Satan is your God. And you're going to acknowledge that God is real, yet you're also going to reject him. Knowingly reject him and choose Satan over God. That's the ultimate evil. That's what it's leading up to, right? It's leading up to making sure that you know what you are rejecting, and that is God. Because while the surface level evil works through lies, deceit, thievery, false prophet steals glory from God, you know, the serpent works in the shadows. In the end, it is the Antichrist and the red dragon. And what do? They want you to know that you are sinning before you do it. That's how they corrupt you. That's how they distort. And this is a little test for the civilian population, I think. I believe it's a little test, okay? It's easier to corrupt the elites with the red dragon and Satan, you know, to get them to engage in the lustful activities with children and the sick stuff they do. They're acknowledging that Satan's real, and because they are getting a direct benefit to it. However, the civilian population don't really get a direct benefit to it. It's more working through fear, and the fear that you might not eat tomorrow, the fear your credit card might not work tomorrow, the fear your debit card might not work tomorrow, the fear that your Bitcoin might drop down to zero. Your Satan's monetary system won't work for you. And what is the goal of that? Well, the goal is, hey, you're going to accept Satan as your God and reject Jesus, or your credit card might not work tomorrow, your debit card might not work tomorrow. You might have to turn stones into bread, like Jesus was told by Satan in the desert when he spent 40 days and 40 nights walking through the desert. So that's the ultimate goal of evil, is to get you to engage in that evil, to get you to accept that evil, to get you to not reject it, to get you to say, you know what, Trump's a great guy, he can diddle children all he wants, he's a great guy still, I'm still supporting his system. Heck yeah, let's go. That's what it's about. And sorry, if you accept Trump after knowing all of this, you are a part of Satan's system. You are knowingly working with a pedophile who hurts children, whose wife was extracted from Epstein's system, and all the models in a lot of the models in his agency, that his modeling programs, were from what Epstein was extracting out of the Soviet bloc countries. And that's coming out all now with the finding out that Epstein and how he was extracting women from the Soviet bloc countries and talked with Zelensky, Putin is not a good guy, okay? But he's not as bad as we're labeling him. And there is a kernel of truth when he said that the vampires' cabal of pedophilic vampires is coming to an end in the West. That means Trump, that means Bill Clinton, that means George Bush Sr., that means the royal family. It's coming to an end. These people who think they can extract children out of South America to kill, extract young women from the Soviet bloc countries that left, it's coming to an end. Or is it? After all, they know what they showed you. Why? So yeah, that was question 4. And please answer that one in the comments below. Alright, to question 2. Do you believe the elites in society actually sacrifice children, like is claimed in many of the files? Well, do you? Write it blue. I think absolutely. Even if some of them are claimed, like maybe the George Bush Sr. Eating a baby wasn't, that file wasn't totally, maybe, it's possible, but I'm telling you, they do it. It's very easy to corrupt someone who believes they've already done everything they can do in life and is looking for more material, more worldly stuff to chase. Okay. Because all these elites, they've already slept with every woman that they've wanted. They've already got every piece of material that they've wanted. Now what do they want to do? They want to live longer so that they have more time to do more stuff. And they want to they do the gateway drug that gets them into the darker stuff, Epstein comes to them and says, hey, you want to mess with the 16, 17-year-old. And then next thing you know, Epstein's coming to them about eating children, It's a gateway drug, He lures them in with little sins, and then it turns into big sins. So lures them in with venial sins, and then it becomes mortal sins. And just back to what I said, it's about living longer as well. That's why I do believe that some of them were eating babies. We're trying to get stem cells, the adrenochrome. There's other names for it, But it's known that babies have a lot of stem cells in their body. Babies have these chemicals that help their body grow. And these elites, and what Satan does, he likes hurting children because it's a way of increasing their life, increasing their time on this earth. That's their goal, you know? And that's the ultimate form of greed. The ultimate form of greed is stealing a child's future to increase your own future. So, and do you believe it happens? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, the Canaanites did it. Baal, child worship, Moloch. You know, it's just coming full circle again. You know, some of the Roman gods did it. They engaged in a lot of debauchery, orgy parties and stuff. And that's the entrance level, okay? To get into these parties, that's the entrance level. Messing with a 17-year-old, going to an orgy party. That's the entry drug. The deep at the bottom of the pit is eating children. It's taking a kid from South America to kill, going on these hunting parties that are discussed in the Epstein files, where they go to these third world countries to kill people. You know, that's the bottom of the pit, because they know that those countries don't have a strong central system that could detect missing people as easy. It's harder to steal a child from the US or like Britain or France or Germany. However, you go to an Eastern Bloc country like Slovakia or Ukraine, or you go to South America to like Chile or Brazil. Very, very easy for these billionaires to take children off the street there and remain unnoticed. So, you know, that hatch in Epstein's Island, that wasn't for him to escape, okay? That was for him to drop bodies through to feed to the sharks. So, and then my last question, question 3. We jumped around just because I found it more interesting to connect ideas. But question 3, do you believe Jeffrey Epstein is dead? If so, or if not, where do you think he or his soul is now? So if he's alive, where do you think he is? And if he's dead, where do you think he is? Where do you think his soul is? Do you believe in a soul? Well, if he's alive, they saw his, I think it was his Steam or Epic Games Fortnite account was playing out of Tel Aviv, Israel. How interesting was that? But I think that's probably his kid, right? That's probably his kid. He's probably not alive playing Fortnite right now. Probably. Even though there is a lot of iffy stuff in those files about him possibly still being alive. And I mean, he is a part of the occultist class. The first time the civilians are getting a peek in the occultist class in hundreds of years. Because there was definitely an occultist class with the Roman Empire, and there was an occultist class in like the Canaanites and stuff, and in Israel in that time with the Pharisees, and there was an occultist class then. But now America's getting a peek. The New World Order. A peek into the New World Order occultist class. And you see how this guy can have his hand in so many pots, you know. One of the benefits of the world being so interconnected right now is people in the occultist class can put their hand in so many pots. But, yeah, so I doubt he's alive playing Fortnite in Israel. However, I do think there is a chance he could be alive, and he is probably in Israel. It's probably his kid, though, playing Fortnite. But on his account. But I do think he definitely had the means, the ability to escape. If anybody did, it's him, being in that class of occultists. However, part of me does think, excuse me, that he is probably dead. I think he's dead. Or a new identity. It's really hard to, because he would have gotten a new identity pretty easy in Israel, and probably facial reconstruction surgery. And here's something to think about. What is the point of blackmail, right? If you never release it, right? What is the purpose of blackmail if the threat to release it isn't real? Maybe Trump, maybe Bill Clinton, maybe Hillary Clinton, maybe one of them challenged him and said, I don't think you're going to release it. I'm not going to do what you're going to tell me. And what's the best way? He fakes his death, he leaves the country, he has a new identity, and now he can release this. So that goes back to question 4. Maybe another reason that they're releasing this now is because someone actually called his bluff. Someone called Epstein's bluff and didn't think he'd release some of this. And the way he knew to release it was to fake his death, leave the country, and then kind of drip feed this information into the system for Mr. Netanyahu over there. And that's why you got Trump meeting with Netanyahu every other week. Isn't that strange, you know? Why is Trump meeting with Netanyahu every freaking other week, you know, on emergency meetings? Because that blackmail was going somewhere. And you know exactly who it was to. The Mossad agent's boss. But anyway, that's another reason that where I think he could be if he is alive. However, I am like 50-50 split. A part of me does think that he's dead. Now, where is he if he was dead? If he's dead, right? I think it's pretty obvious, you know. His system he was running here on Earth pointed very heavily to Satan, right? However, that also works as a reverse compass. Because if Satan's real, that would imply God's real. And if God's real, to those who cause children to stumble, it is better for them to have a millstone around their neck and be thrown into the ocean. Right? So, with 100% certainty, I am sure he is burning in hell. He is burning in hell. Right where he belongs. Because there's got to be a punishment for a pedophile. For a person who tries to corrupt the youth of America by incentivizing gambling among the youth through microtransactions. Who tries to create radical, violent people through 4chan/poll. There's gotta be a punishment for that. And he is burning in hell. 100%. Absolutely. A person who certainly killed some children in his life. A person who certainly killed some babies in his life. A person who kidnapped children from South America. A person who kidnapped children and teen girls from Eastern Europe. Western Russia. There's gotta be a punishment for that. And then I didn't have this question in my notes, but that makes you wonder if all of this points so strongly to there being a real Satan, which paradoxically and reverse compass points to there being a real God. Why do the elites, the ultra wealthy, continually choose Satan? At least some of them. I think there are probably some good ones, maybe, but I don't know. It's harder for the rich man to get into heaven than a camel to pass through the eye of a needle. But why? Why? Is it because they're chasing the world? They're chasing material possession. They're chasing immortality. And that's exactly what Satan promises them. To be immortal. To be the haves among the have-nots. To have everything that the other person won't have. Just food for thought. But thank you, watchers, for watching this, and please leave your soul take in the comments below. I'll have all these questions pinned, including the 5th question I just thought of. And may the Lord bless you on your own journey through this theatrical theater that is being placed in front of us right now. And may Jesus bless you. Bye-bye.